Welcome back to RelaxRV. Hi, my name is Paul. I'm doing a podcast on stress while RVing. And I know none of you have ever experienced anything stressful while RVing. Well, perhaps a little bit. Now, stress means different things to different people, and what stresses one person out may just make another person laugh. And for that, I'm jealous. So let's talk about stress and RVing. Welcome back, everybody. Paul Sebastian, RVer, stress management consultant, registered nurse. Podcasting about the stressors of RVing. Yeah. So this is season 2, because this is our second rig. Season 1 was our first rig. Episode 74. It's being recorded on March 23rd, 2022. So, the podcast has passed the 4-year mark. Unbelievable. So right now, welcome back, everybody. Paul Sebastian, retired nurse, stress management consultant, podcaster. So, this podcast has passed its 4-year anniversary. Congratulations to me. And to you for listening. There's been just under 9,000 downloads to this podcast. So not bad at all. So here we are, March 23rd, 2022. This is season 2 because this is our second rig. Season 1 was our first rig. Episode 74. 74 episodes. Nice. So, where to begin? Well, let's start with, I went to an RV show down in Suffern, New York, Rockland County Community College, back in February. It seems like there's a lot of the new rigs out there are getting rid of the valances and putting up curtains, which was nice to see. We've taken out 3 valances in our rig so far and replaced those valances with curtains. I'll put a link to some of the pictures of the valance replacements in our rig. And there's also a lot more rigs out there with outdoor kitchens, which I was surprised to see. And that got me thinking. Our first rig didn't have an outdoor kitchen, even though I had wanted one. I lost that argument. And you gotta let things go, people. So the second rig, we got our outdoor kitchen. And at first I was really enamored by it and like showing it off. And it turns out that we've had this rig 1.5 years now, and we haven't really used the outdoor kitchen much. There is a refrigerator out there we keep extra wine, extra food that needs to be refrigerated in there. It is nice having a second refrigerator, but we don't really use the kitchen, don't use the sink much. But anyway, a lot of the new rigs do have them. And I also noticed, so inside the show was inside the gym, and there's a balcony on the inside, so you can look down. This gym is where I saw Meatloaf perform back around 1981 or so, or 82. So that's 40 years ago, folks. Time flies when you're having fun. I must be having a ball. So I looked down while at the RV show, and I noticed that only one RV had toppers on top of the slides. And that was like a 38-foot, super class A, one of these that are, pushing $1 million. And it befuddled me. The toppers aren't really expensive, and both of our rigs now have had toppers. We ripped one on our first rig, going down a road that we shouldn't have been going down, and I replaced that topper myself. Well, with help from friends, because it's big and bulky. But just an observation. So, speaking of the valances and the curtains, I finished putting up the curtains in our living room. So when we first bought this rig, the light switch is over the door, and Trish couldn't reach it very easily. So at that time, I had moved the light switch down onto the valance by the front door, so it was nice and convenient. Well, now we're going to be ripping out that valance, so I need to rewire that light switch again. So it's done. The light switch is now mounted on the door frame, right by the front door. Super convenient. A real pleasure. So got all the valances out. That took the electrical part of moving that light switch took majority amount of the time. The rest of it, taking out the valances, mounting the curtain, was, I would say, 2.5 hours. I'll put a link to the pictures, in the show notes, to those, the valance and the curtain, blah, blah, blah. So, I went out. It was a beautiful day about 2 weeks ago. And I figured, let me put out the awning. Let it air out, dry out. So I went into the rig, pushed the button, and nothing. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? So the first thing you should always do, check your fuses. So we have a fuse block for most of the coach stuff underneath our bed. I checked all those, all good. We have 2 fuse blocks underneath the dashboard, and both of them should control most of the stuff at the dashboard. However, one of them is marked a step, and the step is right next, the switch for the step is right next to the switch for the awning. And so I checked all those, good, and we have a battery electrical something box underneath the dashboard. Nope, I'm sorry, underneath the engine cover, right in the center. So I checked all those, and they were all good. I then said, well, let me go around and see what else um, is not working, if anything else was not working. So I checked everything that I could think of, and the only other thing that wasn't working was the over the cab bed. So we were hooked up to shore power, and I unplugged the shore power. I started up the generator, ran it off of 12 volts, and nothing. Those two things wouldn't work. I know sometimes they put safety switches in for like the emergency brake, and if it's not in park and stuff like that. So I tried it all different ways and nothing. So after all of that, I called Thor support, their tech support line. And so the headaches began. So I called, I got a recording saying that they had an unusually large amount of calls, which it's not unusual because they always have a large amount of calls. But I could press, I think, 2, and I would get a call back. So I did that. It was around 12 noon. That day came and went and never got a call back. That evening, I was on Facebook on some of the RVing groups, and somebody had mentioned something about Thor and headaches with their tech support. So I wrote in, well, I called today for an issue, and then I was supposed to get a call back, and I never did. So I guess about an hour or two later, I got a private message from a support representative. I'm really not sure what her title is. From Thor saying, I'm sorry you've had this issue. Would you like me to open up a repair ticket? And I was really pleasantly surprised. I was like, wow. So I said, yes, please open up a repair ticket. And she said she'll make sure that somebody calls the next day. So the other thing that she said was, I noticed that your rig is not registered on our website. I said, well, I think it is because I can access all the schematics and all. And she said, well, yes, but that's not registering it with Thor. So here's a link to do that. And I was kind of surprised. So I registered it with Thor, and then I realized when we had our first rig, the when we got to Thor in Indiana for the battery control center issue, they said there was 2 recalls, and I told them actually that there was 2 recalls, and they couldn't find any record. It turns out that our first rig was never registered through Thor's website to us. Thor never told us that back then. So for this rig, I did do that, and I will put a link in the show notes for you to do that. So the next day